going to tell you a couple of stories tonight. Some really weird history of this place. One of them may or may not be completely false. I'll let you decide. I'm not gonna tell you. But yeah, I hope you enjoy it. Man, I look at you guys. Look, there's people over here, long pants, shoes. You guys all right, man. Wow. Most people, local people would see all this and go, oh man, a lot of people in the church clothes, man. It's nice. My family is like, bro, this is all court clothes right here. This is, you guys must have just come, kind of look. Yes, look. Arraignment, sentencing, arraignment. My mom hates when I say that. That's why I didn't invite her. Nah, I'm kidding, I invited her. She just said she wouldn't come. Nah, I'm kidding again, she's here. But she told me not to say where she is. She's convinced that by the time I power talk, everybody's gonna be so mad that if they found her, they'd walk up and be angry at her and say stuff like, why didn't you drown him at birth? Or, And to her credit, she tried, but you'd be amazed at the lung capacity of a newborn. Gotta get him. I get him. But I'm happy to be here tonight. I know I didn't expect this many people. I don't know if anybody, there's gotta be a Kohala record. There's people who are watching this on the video are not going to be able to see the room, but there's got to be like 2,500 people here tonight. There's people hanging off the upper deck like a soccer stadium. Say, sir, come on. You know there's no upper deck. I saw you like, what the upper deck over here? You know that was a lie. But Kohala does tell me that there was overflow, so they opened up the roof garden. And there's people up there, and they gave out the Kohala cups, so they're going to be on the ceiling like this. So we got to talk loud for the gang. I'm glad you didn't look at that one. Oh. Huh? So like I said, I'm going to tell two stories. The first one is a story that comes from Kona, and the second one from right here in Waimea. I'll let you decide what is what in these stories. And the first story is the story of the Kona Nightingale Ale. The people, and by the way, I'm going to be trying to speak good English, so I don't know how good it's going to go. I might get dizzy, I might explode out. It takes a lot of bandwidth to speak proper English, and I ain't got it, so we'll see what happens. So the story of Kona Nightingale Ale. So the people of Kona have a deep respect for the humble donkey, born out of years of shared history. The donkey's ability to carry heavy loads over rough and hilly terrain made them ideally suited for life on the coffee plantations, where they were the chief method of transport for the farmers until the end of World War II. Most families could only afford one donkey, and so most of the animals lived solitary lives. In the evening, the lonely donkeys would bray, calling out to their brothers and sisters in the cool night air of the Kona uplands. It is this braying that earned them the nickname of the Kona Nightingale. Most of these donkeys lost their jobs after World War II, when surplus military jeeps were cheap and plentiful. Many of these retired animals would eventually end up living wild in the North Kona area. But one donkey would be destined for a life altogether different. In the late 1930s, a Kona teenager named Samuel Kanoho began brewing his own beer as a hobby and dreamed that someday he might make a living at it. He put that dream on hold while he was fighting in World War II. But by early 1946, Kanoho had saved up enough money to lease a small piece of land and start a tiny brewery. But after buying all the necessary equipment and materials, there wasn't enough money left over to purchase the surplus Jeep. The only transport vehicle he could afford was the ubiquitous donkey. As luck would have it, an auction to sell off several free-range donkeys was taking place in Kona that weekend, and Kanoho set out to find his worker. A visit to the donkey paddock on the day of the auction proved that all these animals were comfortable enough with people, and all came to the fence to greet Samuel. All except one, which snorted at him from across the pen. As it turned out, this was the only donkey the young man could afford, since no one else would bid on him. But still, Kanoho was glad to have secured his new employee. The two brewers hit it off immediately. Kanoho called the donkey every name in the book, and the donkey made it a point not to answer to any of them. Once the brewery was operational, Samuel began to experiment with a recipe for a beer that would appeal to a large audience and ensure his successful career. But try as he might, every batch he brewed came out as sour and unpleasant as his donkey. No change of ingredients or in process helped, and the young man began to despair. One day, while walking the grounds around the brewery, lost in thought, trying to understand where he was going wrong, he was startled by the sight of his donkey relieving himself into the stream which ran through the property. The same stream from which he drew the water for his beer. Incensed, Samuel berated the donkey and ordered him to do his business somewhere else, but the stubborn creature refused to entertain the idea of a change in venue. It was just then that the owner of the land drove up, unannounced, to see if young Kanoho was going to be a success and thus be able to pay his monthly lease. The brazen landlord suggested that Kanoho allow him to taste the new beer, but Samuel was sheepish and said that the recipe wasn't quite perfected yet. However, the boorish landowner insisted, and Kanoho handed the man a bottle. Quietly, Samuel began to imagine how he would dismantle the operation and leave this place defeated. All of a sudden, the landlord let out a holler, smiled at Kanoho, and proceeded to drain the bottle in one toss. He loved it. He declared the current recipe perfect. So successful did he imagine Kanoho's enterprise would be that he promptly announced he was raising the rent and left all aglow. Samuel was stunned. From somewhere behind him, he could swear he heard the donkey laughing. He began to bottle the foul beer at once and loaded the donkey with several cases, which he took to various bars and restaurants in the Kona area, and all of them quickly sold out. Samuel was in business, and apparently he wasn't going anywhere, just like his damn sour donkey. In honor of the cranky critter that put his beer recipe over the top, Kanoho named the now famous beer he helped create, Kona Nightingale Ale. Unfortunately, Samuel Kanoho and his awful Nightingale have long since passed away, having killed each other in a bizarre domestic argument in 1961. But the brewery they built is still in business today and even employs a small herd of donkeys on site. You can visit the place and see the brewing and bottling processes up close. But the job the donkeys do, well, they keep that part of the recipe a closely guarded secret. Thank you, thank you. I collect T-shirts, I don't know. And so I did get a shirt from the brewery, and I'm sorry you can't see it all the way in the back, but I'm gonna let the people in the front, because they came early, and let them see. I think I bought it just because it says we've been making ass since 19, whatever it says. Huh? Oh. Anyway. All right, I'm glad you like that one. I don't know which one is the true one. You guys are gonna have to. Don't hate me because I'm lying. And the second story brings us back here to Waimea. And I got a shirt for that one too. This is the story of the Hawaiian cowboy. Not cowboy, not C-O-W, boy. K-A-U, boy, cowboy. Here we go. Although there are cowboys all over the world, the cowboy's job is different from place to place, owing to the unique environment of each of those places. The Mexican vaqueros are different from the cowboys of the American West, who are in turn different from the gauchos in Argentina, and so on. Much of the differences can be seen in the techniques and equipment required to cowboy in each specific environment. How's my English? Pretty good, huh? All right. That is especially true of the Hawaiian Paniolo, who at one point cowboyed in the ocean and who continued to work in some difficult terrain. The steep volcanic mountainsides, treacherous gorges, and dangerous rock outcroppings hidden by long, wet kikuyu grass mean that the Paniolo, especially those on Hawaii Island, have adapted their equipment in unique ways. Some of the most obvious differences are in the saddles, and old Hawaiian saddles are highly collectible for their uniqueness as much as for their fine craftsmanship. But not many people know about the difference in their choice of footwear. Boots all look like boots. I don't know who wrote this. But the mountain pasture conditions on Hawaii Island required something special. The groundbreaking Hawaiian cowboy boot was developed by one man. Charles Chuchu Hanohano was born in Waimea in 1919. Born with dwarfism, Choo-Choo spent his entire life closer to the ground than most, so he was in a unique position to judge the performance of a particular boot design in a given environment. This guy. Stop, I try not to laugh. Since his dad was a Paniolo, Choo-Choo spent most of his youth and then his adulthood working on the ranch in Waimea. He idolized his dad and the other ranch hands, all of them fiercely proud to be Paniolo. His dad was fond of saying, "Us guys, we not cowboy, we cowboy." But years of watching the Paniolo fail to keep their footing while working on the mountainous pasture lands left the younger Hano-Hano frustrated. These proud cowboys needed help. As a dwarf, Choo-Choo believed he would probably never become a cowboy like his dad, so he looked elsewhere for his future. He discovered that he had an affinity for leatherworking and convinced the saddle makers on the ranch to teach him the trade. As his proficiency with leather grew, so did his curiosity about the shortcomings of the Paniolo's traditional Western boots, and he decided to apply his newfound skills to solving the problem. After several weeks of drawing and prototypes, he realized that the majority of Paniolo had extra wide feet, as do most Hawaiians. And that process of squeezing their feet into the narrow traditional Western cowboy boots was making their feet go numb. The result of that numbness was that the Paniolo couldn't negotiate the uneven ground beneath them very well. Whenever they were out of the saddle, they were prone to vicious spills, which in turn could mean lost man hours due to injuries or worse. Hano-Hano began to make boots that were much wider than traditional models, with broader heels and more spacious toe boxes. He gave several pairs to the ranch hands who fell in love with the new design immediately. By the end of the 1930s, Choo-Choo had a reputation as the preeminent boot maker to Paniolo, and life was good. But in 1944, Choo-Choo was the victim of a freak accident on the ranch. One day, just after lunch, Choo-Choo was sitting in the outhouse doing his other business when a particularly nasty bull got loose from his pen and went on a rampage across the ranch. Before he could be subdued, he demolished the outhouse and stomped on the unsuspecting young Hano-Hano. Choo-Choo was in a coma for 3... Did you laugh at that? That's a mean bugger, bro. I like you. Choo-Choo was in a coma for 3 weeks, but remarkably, the only lasting injury he suffered was a bit of jumbled brain wiring that left him slightly cross-eyed and caused him to mix up his left and his right. Ironically, this led to the most endearing feature of a pair of Choo-Choo's boots. The left boot is labeled right, and the right boot is labeled left. In the winter of 1946, Choo-Choo decided to leave the ranch and open his own store in Waimea town, a good distance from the nearest bowl, or outhouse for that matter. He called the place the Hawaiian Cowboy in honor of the title his dad gave to himself and his fellow Paniolo all those years ago. Today, the original shop still stands, and Choo-Choo's 2 grandsons and 3 great-grandsons still make boots for Paniolo on all islands. Naturally, the left boots are labeled right, and the right boots are labeled left, just as they should be. Thank you. Yeah, I will hold up this shirt too. Yeah. Just so you're not even sure which one I'm lying about right now. So what do you think? The first one? Which one is the lie? Number 2. I got number 2. Anybody for number 1? Number 1. Okay. Well, they're both full of nothing. I said one was a complete lie. I never said it wasn't both complete lies. Anyway, listen, I appreciate you folks coming. I thank Civil Beat for asking, for inviting me. You too. Thank you to Kohala Theater for hosting this event, and I appreciate you folks. Yeah. Mahalo.